the way, we're in our fifth match of the day now, where it's going to be RDU taking on SilverName in this one. And SilverName has bounced back from Season 1 in a massive way, where he's 2-0 to start things off here in Grandmasters. Very different than it was last season. And I'm curious, how much impact perhaps Conquest has had onto that. In the specialist format, he continued to bring a deck that was a bit off the wall, and it was causing a lot of losses. But here, we can see the shield and ban and phase of this particular one. Warrior protected for RDU, and Paladin protected for SilverName. Those could not be banned away, and now the Druid banned away on RDU side, and that's going to be the Rogue banned away on SilverName side. And I think this is a smart decision for RDU, because a lot of the good lineups right now, they feel so weak to aggro Rogue at this particular moment, and that's exactly the deck that SilverName has brought with his Rogue slot.
I mean, not only aggro Rogue, he also has aggro Warrior and Murloc Paladin. So there are several unsurprising things about this sort of pick ban phase. RDU protecting Warrior, first and foremost.
Yes.
That makes some sense.
You're like, okay. Makes it easy.
So then, with that in mind, you kind of want to ban away the deck that I guess you consider the most resilient, the most well-rounded, the least like out-and-out aggro, which I guess, even though it is a very aggressive form of the deck, it's still fairly well-rounded in terms, you have Evil Miscreant in the deck. You can play for value sometimes. You can go longer, whereas the other decks, they're kind of, push all in. If you gas out, you gas out, and I think those are the kind of decks that RDU's lineup can potentially beat up on.
He's got a fresh haircut for today. And we're kicking it off with Quest Shaman for RDU taking on the Murloc Paladin from SilverName. We saw Swids pilot this deck and just kept drawing the tips instead of the prismatic lenses. And the prismatic lens is the one part of that equation you want to see first. It is night and day difference if you're drawing the prismatic lens.
Yep.
Couple things to think about for SilverName is, number one, in this matchup, RDU has actually teched in a copy of Hungry Crab.
Yeah, we've been seeing that back and forwards in a couple of the decks, right? Particularly in various, not just the Battlecry Shaman, but also in the Aggro Shaman as well, coming down as an option. I think it does make some sense. Murloc Paladin is a deck that's floating around the metagame, and even when it whiffs, it's not that bad. We saw a matchup earlier with Tice versus Kalento, where it would seem that Hungry Crab was completely useless in that matchup, but it still ended up getting some work done just because of the huge stats it can generate itself of double Battlecry, plus just eating your own Sludge Slurpers.
Yeah. I like this line from SilverName as well. I've played a bit of Murloc Paladin. I played it pretty late into the expansion, admittedly. Not during the opening days where it was super powerful, but this is a matchup where you go face a lot. Like, you are inherently a minion burn style deck. And so for SilverName, seeing that questing adventurer, that's like one of the worst sights you could have possibly seen on turn 2, because it just stops your curve so much.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in these options.
That is some fairly premium looking stuff.
So if you fork Lightning, you fight for tempo. If you mutate, you get a 4-drop off the whole Parascoundrel. And if you take Earthquake, you perhaps have some countermeasures to tip the scales.
Yeah, if you take Earthquake, then you have an Earthquake. And that's that's quite important. I will say, whenever you play a matchup like this, I think it's super easy to get baited by Forked Lightning, because you can visualize all these board states where Forked Lightning's super good. The problem with Forked Lightning is that even when it's good, it's really bad. The overload. Yeah, the overload cost is just so miserable that even just in the moment, if you get the perfect dream turn and you just smack 2 Bloodfen Raptors with it, you still pay for it super hard the next turn. I think it's very, very rarely a good card.
SilverName's got some thinking to do. Is it worth killing this evil totem? How many Murlocs are you willing to put in play this turn?
I mean, what is up with all this Toxfin?
I wonder.
I'll tell you what's up with it. They're 1-mana 1/2s.
SilverName's just got more poison than an AP's hair metal convention right now.
We used Zephyrus as a Bloodfen Raptor.
Yeah.
We're thinking about using Finley as a River Crocolisk. This is Hearthstone at its peak, all right? You may not like it, but this is what it looks like.
Who said I didn't like it?
I said you may not. Okay. That's a reference to everybody, not just you.
Oh, okay.
This includes me.
Do you like it?
Well, of course.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
It's minions that attack face.
Well, it's minions with the lofty ambition of attacking face. I don't know how much attacking face SilverName's going to be doing.
I'm killing you, but it pains me to do it.
Yeah.
We could have lightning bolted face. Instead, we lightning bolted evil totem. Ugh.
I like how RDU just leaned in closer.
He's got to take a good look at this one.
Yeah.
What to do?
I was thinking Life Drinker looked okay to me, but that gives up the Lackey for the Wasp.
Yes. I think it also gives up a potential ton of damage if your opponent has Murloc buffs in hand. Like, that is a lot to sit back and take.
Yeah, you have to respect Murloc War Leader in this spot. You need to respect.
Grimscale Oracle as well. It's just like, almost equally miserable.
Well, let's see here, not a bad one. So for SilverName, I think that this push is lined up to just get disrupted from RDU. Ooh, if that True Silver's trading. I wonder what he's fearing from the spell off Valpera Scoundrel. My instinct was to play the Cold Light Seer and just, again, go face.
Yeah, I mean, so I get what you're saying. I think if the True Silver gets played, it trades, right? But like, I do think that's also an inferior play to playing the Cold Light Seer.
Yeah. The 1/4, I think, should be cleaning up the Wasp here as well. That's just responsible.
Yep.
Ooh, perhaps that's what he was thinking about. One copy in RDU's deck.
We've had that debate, right? How much do you want to play around a one of?
I don't ever. All right, weak steel.
That's the worst one.
It does open up the Murloc War Leader, though.
Freaking value.
Yeah!
Got him.
Look at me. I'm the Murloc deck now.
It's me, all right.
So over 2 turns for SilverName, I'm counting 19 damage. 2 swings of True Silver. This 5 gets shipped face. That's not enough to kill. And so that spells Tasty Fin to me.
Not 21, yeah. Definitely a good thing to look at, though.
Look at the difference in just questing Explorer was this game, seriously.
Yeah.
All right. Questing Explorer.
Yes, you did actually say Adventurer the first time.
I wish you would have
I didn't correct you, but you corrected yourself and then started to incorrect yourself.
I'm just going to build full quest decks from now on. I'll just put it both in.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Reporting for duty.
So for SilverName, he says, just drawing extra damage is going to be the easiest way for me to do this. It takes multiple things on board right now to counteract the 3/6 in play, so maybe it connects again. If it connects again and RDU fails to restore health, that's going to be good enough.
Yeah, bad news. It's not going to be good enough. It is absolutely not going to be good enough.
Ooh. Yeah, Life Drinker in these scenarios is just a powerhouse. You were able to stave off the early pressure.
He's safe to just remove this turn, right? And then Life Drinker on the following turn, though?
So that's a good question. If you look at SilverName's deck list in particular, it being an open deck list actually has, I think, a number of benefits right now. The one thing he's not safe to is Bluegill Warrior.
Yep.
And Leroy Jenkins, exactly. So I think you actually can afford to play around that, because I believe his hand is strong enough to fight through some pretty crazy stuff that can happen.
Yeah, this makes sense. You can be 100% safe this turn. I was just looking at it backwards. This is much, much better, yeah. I just totally forgot about Bluegill.
Yeah. And so that was my thought on the previous turn for SilverName, was Tasty Fin versus the True Silver Champion. He opted for the damage line, and I can't blame him for that. You know, it also plays to a top deck of Bluegill in a lot of those scenarios.
Yeah, I think it's just an evaluation of the situation where he says, no Life Drinker plus I draw Bluegill is probably my best chance of winning from this position.
And so now it's, you know, pretty much tip the scales or bust on the following turns.
Yeah.
Prismatic Lens is, you know, honorable mention to that.
Yes, of course. But now that the push has failed, I think he does have to divert back to a bit of board control so that he can give himself time for the tip the scales to have an impact.
Yeah, the 1/1's doing a lot of work with that. I think the True Silver can stay put.
Reporting for duty.
I think the True Silver kills this 3/3.
Definitely don't want to get bog sloshed.
Baristed. Oof. That's a timely Earthshock if I've ever seen one.
Never seen an Earthshock before?
Not one as timely as that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the look from SilverName, I think, spells out the rest of that one. This isn't the exact matchup he's hunting for. I imagine it's the rest of them where he feels like he has an edge. But, you know, even against Warrior, I think it's going to be tough. At the end of the day, the Murloc Paladin is very much a success versus failure rate style of deck.
And it's kind of the point I want to bring up. Like, it just looks so hopeless when it doesn't get the Prismatic Lens interaction. Like, I just fail to see what it does well in the world where you don't just high roll that turn 4 combination.
Yeah, and honestly, if the part of the difference to me too is that he had a strong early curve. RDU had literally questing Explorer.
Yeah, that's the things. Yeah.
Like if it's not contested by questing Explorer, that Zephyrus can deal 6 damage.
Yeah.
He's gonna have an extra minion to play the whole game.
Right.
It's so wildly different.
Yeah. But I would argue if your deck like hinges on the fact, oh, my opponent had generic 2-drop that just my entire game plan.
The victory is
I mean, that turn right there, if that comes on turn 5 instead, that's the end of the game.
That's what I'm saying. Is that good enough to beat a deck, though?
Yes, I think it is.
All right, fine.
Not every time, though. The thing about it is you've taken the agency out of your hands, right? You have put the agency all in the deck building process.
I think that's why I'm so generically against it. Yeah. I think like, to me, it's a deck that I just kind of find uninteresting for that reason. Like, it's a mediocre aggro deck. Like, it can win some games just by being an aggro deck. Of course it can. It just draws a curve, your opponent whiffs, you beat him up. Of course that can happen. But the aggro decks I find interesting are the ones where that's very consistent, and then the agency is in your hands to maximize that consistency and really curve out and be punishing. Not where the deck just hands you this sometimes you win button on turn 4. Like, it's just not my kind of thing.
I mean, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I can see why it's there, though. You know, I think that the better the quality of your opponent is, I think the more willing you should be to take risks like that. And I think
that is true.
I think that's a very relevant thing to talk about. Also, just you think about the range of decks across Grandmasters this week. I don't think Murloc Paladin looked that bad. I think it's looked bad on the games we've seen because it just hasn't drawn the goods. Like, we haven't seen it draw Prismatic Lens in a tip early on.
I mean, that's kind of what led out this entire discussion. Like, my statement was when it doesn't get the Prismatic Lens, it just looks kind of hopeless. And that's just what we've seen. But that's the percentage failure rate that's just built into the deck, I guess. We saw, like, the absolute bottom of the scale with Swids, where he drew both tips into his hand instead. Like, at least SilverName actually drew a Murloc curve instead of drawing the Prismatic Lens. So he had a fighting chance for some period of the game. And he had, situations where he set up top deck lethal. But it still, to me, seems like a very fragile deck that needs a bit more examining as the meta game develops.
Yeah, pinpoint decisions are in the first 2 or 3 turns of the game. So we got to go to a break. When we come back, though, we're going to be jumping into game number 2 of our 5th match of the day. And then afterwards, we're sending it over to America's. RDU up a game over SilverName. Stay tuned. We have plenty more Hearthstone if you're itching for it.
Well met, friend. Ooh.
Let's get this over with. I win!
amazing game. Oh, well played.
Here's to the winner.
Hello, my name is Kong Shu. My handle is StrifeCro. I think my original name was just like Strife. I think I just stole it from someone else that I saw online at the time when I was like 10. One of my favorite esports memory, it was like a dream hack. I ended up having like this like epic, like I don't even know how long this game against Glinto eventually beat me in that game, but I kind of brought the mage to the tournament, not as like, say I thought it was like the best thing ever, but because I just wanted to like show people I could destroy everyone with my kind of like troll deck. The thing I'm most looking forward to in Grandmasters is kind of the dynamic, because I've never really had this like league kind of dynamic in the past. You have 2 matchups a week, and you can kind of like target them. You know, you can start making spreadsheets, see what they play, see what decks are good against the decks that they play. You can even kind of play some mind games like that. I think my play is unique in the sense that I'm very like technical. I don't play a lot on intuition as much. Like I really like to have my thoughts and game plans planned out and go from there. My personal goals this year is kind of to get back into Hearthstone. Because I took such a long break, I feel like I'm finally refreshed and ready to go. So that's one thing I'm just looking forward to get like that motivation back.
Fifth and final match of the European region of Hearthstone Grandmasters. I'm Nathan, that's Admirable Zamora. I'm joined by Simon Sottle Welch, and right now RDU is up a game with Quest Shaman, able to offset the Tip the Scales Murloc from SilverName, who pretty much brought a full aggressive lineup to this week. Like, don't let those little icons fool you, Sottle, because that warrior, it's not the warrior you're thinking of.
It is not. You might look at that and think, well, he's got Highlander Hunter and a Warrior Mirror left. He's still in decent shape this series. No, he's kind of in trouble because he is about to run Aggro Warrior, which I believe is not a deck we've seen in Europe so far in Season 2 Grandmasters. He's about to run that into Control Warrior from RDU, which is bad, bad news. And if he's going to have any hope, that left card there out of the 3 key cards, the Bloodsworn Mercenary, that is what he is going to need. He is going to need it early, and he is going to need it big.
Yeah, I was about to say, bite your tongue a second here. There's one of the most powerful cards in the game, just not surrounded by the right quality.
Yeah, I mean, it just straight up is. Like, in isolation, that card is insane. Just looking at his list, this is actually one of the first decks I built in the expansion, and I do have like a couple of questions about how he's built it. First, Red Band Wasp. I don't like playing any other rush minions apart from the 4-drop rush minions, because I like the consistency of Town Crier, being able to plan out curves based around that, knowing what Town Crier draws me. Planning out your curve with an aggro deck is very, very important, and if you draw a 2-drop rush some of the time or a 4-drop rush some of the time, that puts you in a bad position. I'm also not sure about 1 copy of Rampage in the deck either. I think that potentially Rampage might just end up being bait entirely in this deck if it even does end up sticking around. But I also just philosophically think 1 copy of most things is incorrect. Like, I am a 2 or 0 gamer.
Yeah, you have that philosophy. I certainly think of it differently. One of the ways I like to think of it is this card important to my deck? And if the answer is sometimes, I like to include 1 copy. If the answer is no, I don't like to include it. If the answer is absolutely, I put in 2 copies. Those are your only options. You can't put in 1.5. Well, I get more of the expedition. That's not the point. Averages of cards don't really count in that manner. It's the decision to deliberately put them there or not. Part of my question was this opening hand. No, you have so many early drops. I want the freaking Bloodsworn Mercenary.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I wasn't paying full attention to SilverName's mulligan. What did he keep?
Well, I didn't see the mulligan animation. It looked like he full capped.
Okay.
I don't know if that's correct or not. In terms of, I'm not sure if he full capped.
I think one drop Frothing Berserker is a very reasonable keep against Warrior.
I'm kind of interested in the Frothing Berserker with an Inner Rage this turn.
I must choose.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
I want that Restless Mummy, if it's going to hit stuff, to have to hit the Frothing Berserker twice.
Do you want a 3-1 or a 1-2?
3-1. Okay, it's bigger. So this is an all-in maneuver. Also, are you attacking face in the previous turn? I wonder if that's worth talking about.
It certainly is. And I'm just going to call it incorrect.
Oh! Double drain life!
Yeah, I absolutely don't think you attack from 1 when that 1 is 30 to 29 against a Battle Rage deck. I think that is just incorrect.
And RDU's expression, I think, is adequate. I think SilverName's expression is adequate. That was the lone card RDU needed to make sure he did not take a massive shot from that card. And as a result, he pulls way ahead.
Yes, he does. And from here, Restless Mummy into Dino-Matic, into Harrison Jones that can take care of an Arcanite Reaper or this Lance if he sees the need. Like, he's going to be able to buy so much time. And honestly, if he is alive on turn 8, Aggro Warrior kind of just concedes to Tomb Warden. And there's that bait I was talking about. Swap that for just generic minion. And sometimes you're in a better spot. I worry about that card in this deck, honestly. It helps your good starts win more. It doesn't do a whole lot to fix your bad starts.
Well, I got some good news for you, Saddle. You're not going to have to worry too much longer.
That was borderline cruel. But funny.
Was it
So I'll allow
cool?
it.
I mean, look at the game state.
It was just true.
The Frothing Berserker got a Shield Slam ripped on it right on turn 3.
Yeah.
Without that Shield Slam, Artie's going to take like 20.
Yeah, it did. Also, he wasn't going to take 20.
No, that turning him over stays.
Yeah.
That's like 6 more damage here.
That's not 20.
So the Frothing Berserker would have connected for 5. And then turning him over would still be in play right now.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just different.
Yeah.
Like without that Frothing Berserker, you know, it's an all-in play. I respect SilverName's cavalier attitude for in-game agency.
I mean, I think that was absolutely the right line for him to take.
Yes.
We both called it out at the time. Like, yeah, this makes sense. I like this. One of the reasons why I like, when I said I like the one-drop Frothing Berserker keep, it's just because that's the kind of play you can make. Bloodsworn Mercenary is the card. Frothing Berserker is a very, very close second in terms of just getting something to give yourself hope in this matchup. You just drew the goods. Sometimes you get got.
Absolutely on board with the Cruel Taskmaster's turn. I think the debate is the Kobold. You have some instinct to hit the Harrison Jones with it, but honestly, the way that this is set up versus Dino-Matic is I don't want to hit the Harrison Jones with it. I actually was loving the setup because of how this interacted against Dino-Matic.
Yeah, right. With the added 2 health from Harrison not
Yeah.
being a mech on your side of the board, it actually made a Dino-Matic turn very, very awkward. I think what he does play better against is Warpath in that situation by doing it that way. So I can understand his thinking. Of course, we have the caster vision of staring at the Dino-Matic and not at a Warpath. But I think, you know, 2 copies of Warpath, 2 copies of Dino-Matic, pick your poison. You could argue that Dino-Matic is a worse scenario for you there than Warpath is. It's fairly similar. I mean, the Warpath also takes care of this 3-1. You just don't have a 3-4 on your side of the board. So I honestly think that's just a pretty 50-50 call from SilverName.
Bump and brawl. Looks weird, but that's what you do in this matchup. You just do everything you can to rumble for life total.
Right.
You're thinking the Living Monument?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we just play 2 Modern into Dr. Boom into Living Monument for
Yeah!
the yeah!
Rip the guitar! Hit him with a sick face melter! Look at that guy go! Nice battle rage turn. Oh, my kingdom for 1 more mana. I think you double Wasp here. You throw Caution to the Wind. You cannot afford to play around cards.
I think I agree with you.
What now?
You know, he's...
It can also, sorry to cut you off, it can also go back to that turn where we were talking about the Harrison interaction. Like, SilverName might have a read on like whether he thinks it was better or not to have Warpathed on that turn as opposed to have to Dynamatic, which can affect how he generates this board. Because if he just double Wasps here and just leaves the board and says go, Warpath is, I mean, we've been talking about X ends the game for most of this game, but Warpath like actually is the final nail in the coffin.
Brutalizes you.
Yeah.
But again, this is aggro decks in a nutshell, and especially the all-in ones. These are some of my favorite decks because they test your will the entire time.
Yes.
Are you willing to lose the game and go to the edge of the defeat constantly in matchups where you die to a single card?
Call it off. Call it off. Hearthstone is cancelled. This is not fair.
Silver, man, he's making the right calls, but this is the part of the deck.
Oh my goodness.
You got.
RDU, you filthy, filthy boy.
No reason to play Zephyrus when that's what the top of your deck is for.
No tomb can hold me.
Yeah, well, I got a tomb for you. It's called Dr. Boom Mad Genius, and it can, in fact, hold you.
Blast Shield. Disappeared. Microbots.
Okay, 4 Frightened Flunkies. Okay.
2.
Mission 1 accomplished.
This place is scary.
Failed.
Get yourself a nice Bone Wraith.
Keep blocking for that mummy. You need linebackers right now. I wanted to see the Living Monument in play so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Warden for the tomb as well. Oh.
My blade be thirsty.
SilverName drawing just enough gas every turn to keep him interested.
No tomb can hold me.
Reminder, this is 2 cards from Battle Rage instead of 1.
Okay, so Rampage Bloodsworn Mercenary. That's a big deal.
And that's the second card that SilverName has drawn that he absolutely should not be drawing because he should be at 30 this game. It makes no difference if he was at 37 instead of 36 here. It makes a huge difference if you're at 29 and can draw a card off Battle Rage.
Yeah, and notice that he's keeping the taunt around to try and block for that Falling Berserker. His hope is that RDU does not. I'm not even gonna finish my sentence.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Like,
yeah, what SilverName said.
this is such a weird experience. I'm both enjoying and pained by watching this situation.
No, that is exactly the right way to describe this.
Drink up behind.
It's like the game keeps handing SilverName rays of hope just so it can tear them away from him immediately afterwards.
It's like casting Wasaddle.
Jeez.
This game is headed one direction only. South.
No tomb can hold me. No tomb can hold me.
is his turn?
To be honest, I think allowing SilverName to attack on his opponent's turn is the least you can do to balance the scales in this game. Ethereal Lackey. Nope.
He's just going to the bitter end. Respect.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth hanging in there because he can Ethereal Lackey into like Brawl or Plague of Wrath or whatever to take care of the board, and then something. None of these 8 cards do anything in RDU's hand. Also, I think he's just slightly amused by this game. In
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, he's like, yeah. Everybody hurts.
In the most like macabre, sardonic, miserable way possible, I think SilverName is just kind of having a good time right now.
I respect that. Sometimes I just have those days. I did my best. I did my best.
There it is. It has been a long, slow procession to that point, but that game honestly was over for a very, very long time. And yes, RDU, you should smile, you filthy boy. That, I've used this phrase a lot this week, but that actually should have been illegal. Like that, you can't do that to a man.
It got done. That's not RDU's fault. He's playing his cards. That's exactly what Kalento said at the start of the show.
He's playing one specific card, the one that comes into his hand on the start of the turn. That's the one he's playing.
You know, the right side definitely is always that's the one when they go to their turn and they just grab that right card, I'm like, no, not that one.
Yeah.
Anyone but that one.
Yeah.
Use the one you plan to use.
Yeah.
Artie's ready for an interview. Artie, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, indeed I can. Congratulations on your win here. It's the first one you picked up, and I think a very, very critical one to avoid that dreaded record that no one's looking for this week. And so, since it's the first we're talking to you, I want to first ask you about your thoughts on the changes in Grandmasters from Season 1 to Season 2. What do you like and what do you dislike?
So, this format is very weird to me. I feel like there are so many things you can potentially do with it. I like how complicated it is, but last week I felt like my preparation was good, my lineup was good, I got the matchups that I wanted, I queued the right matchups, and I still lost. So like, I feel maybe it's an issue with sample size, but I feel this format is way more rewarding the better practice than Specialist. A lot of, you have to test a lot of matchups, you have to think of all the possible situations with shielding. I really like it. I just hope in the end the sample size rewards the better preparation, because I saw a lot of players with better strategy losing. So I don't know. I think in the end is gonna be fine. I'm just hoping for the best, and I like how complicated it is. I love the complicated aspect of it.
Cool. So am I right in saying you were like out of the Grandmasters, you were probably one of the bigger fans of Specialist as a format? Like you kind of enjoyed playing it last season?
Yeah, like Specialist was simple to practice for, but in a way it felt rewarding, at least in the beginning. But towards the end, when everybody was playing the same 2 decks, it felt less like that. I feel like Specialist is still a fine format in like specific meta games.
Okay.
Like it felt really good in Vegas. In Seoul, it felt like okay-ish. I don't know. It's complicated to say. I feel like maybe the best format is the next format, like keep changing them, alternating them.
That's kind of the nature of cards, right? It's always the next one I'm looking forward to.
Strike format 2020 confirmed.
Nope.
So I do, like, we have to ask you about that. That second game was ridiculous. Like, Shield Slam off the top, Warpath off the top, Brawl off the top. Like, you didn't need any of the other cards in your hand that entire game apart from the one that was being drawn. Like, we were just falling around laughing about how ridiculous that game was. But how did it feel for you playing it? Is there any point where you felt threatened, like after the first Shield Slam?
I felt threatened turn 1 when I wasn't sure if I should keep Harrison. I probably shouldn't have kept it. And then I saw that he kept his full hand. I was like expecting Ethereum Rover, and then like turn 2 Inner Rage with the Mercenary.
Right.
But he had Frothing and not Mercenary, so I was like relieved. And then when I saw the Shield Slam, I was like, okay, it's game over. Like that matchup is so one-sided for Control Warrior. Literally, the only way they can win is an early snowball, and that was what I was afraid of. When I saw Shield Slam, I was like 0% for him to win. Like, I just don't think that Aggro Warrior is good deck.
It's the Bloodsworn Mercenary deck. Let's be real. Yeah.
If you don't draw it, if you draw it, it's like decent. If you don't draw it, it's like tier 3, 4, 5. I don't know.
I agree with every word that has been said in the last minute.
It's like the how high can RDU count tier.
Yes.
It's a pretty high number sometimes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your lineup a little bit for this one. How did you prepare for it? And talk to me about some of the decks that you couldn't bring. Was there anything you were experimenting with that just didn't quite fit in this week's lineup?
Yeah, I experimented with a lot of things. There are some decks I didn't try, and I want to try more to potentially bring them next week. I prepared with Psycho and Ties, and I ended up bringing the exact same lineup as Psycho. Ties went a little bit different because he didn't trust our Rogue. I don't know, I like the Rogue. I feel like Mountain Giant is pretty good for the matches that we want it for. I mean, Mountain and Sea Giant are pretty similar. Sea Giant is a bit better in an aggro meta. Mountain Giant is way better against Warrior and slower decks. But it's still Shark Rogue, pretty much. But I don't know. I feel like I'm happy with the lineup, but I would definitely change some things. What I would change, I don't really want to say it because there's also a next week in the same meta game. So
Sure.
I kind of want to keep some secrets to be able to give myself the best chances.
Anything else?
That's all for me. Just hope this win is a change in fortune for you, RDU, and we get to talk to you a lot more in the coming weeks.
I hope the same.
See you soon.
RDU always has so many thoughts for me, and I'm just like, every single time I see him lose, I'm always just like, how did this happen? Like, every time I hear him, he just sounds so smart. Like, I watch a ton of his streams. I wake up super early in the morning, and I drink my coffee, and I'm like watching him, and I'm watching Board Control, and just RDU is he's just a smart dude.
Oh, hang on. That's the greatest stream wars of 2019. The RDU versus Board Control. You have to pick a side. Like, that's like Biggie and Tupac. You can't just listen to them both. You got to pick one. You can't just wake up in the morning and watch them both.
Well, I'm going to pick RDU then. Sorry, Boar.
Team Boar over here.
Well, British.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I picked RDU. You have to pick Boar.
All right, well,
my team.
Let's get the rest of this over with nice and quick so we can actually fist.
All right. That's it. Let's